Right. Number 5. Flawed beauty. The problem with toughened glass. On 2nd August 1999, a particularly hot day in the town of Cirencester in the UK, a large pane of toughened glass in the roof of a shopping centre at Bishop's Walk shattered without warning and fell from its frame. When fragments were analysed by experts and the giant glass manufacturer, Pickinton, which had made the pane, they found that minute crystals of nickel sulfide trapped inside the glass that had almost certainly caused the failure. Glass industry is aware of the issue, says Brian Waldron, chairman of the Standards Committee and the Glass Glazing Federation, a British trade association and standards developed by an officer at Pickinton, but he insists that the cases are far between and it's a very rare phenomenon, he says. Others disagree. On average, I see about one or two buildings a month suffering from nickel sulfide related failure, said Barry Josie, a consultant engineer involved in the Bishop's Walk investigation. Other experts tell a similar experience. Tommy Wilmot of London-based consulting engineers Sandberg and Simon Armstrong and Clad Tech Associates in Hampshire both say they know hundreds of cases. What you hear is the only tip of the iceberg, says Trevor Ferd, a glass expert in Resolve Engineering Brisbane, Queensland. He believes the reason is simple: no one wants a bad press. Toughened glass is found everywhere, from cars and bus shelters to windows, walls, and roof of thousands of buildings around the world. It's easy to see why. This glass has 5 times the strength of standard glass, and when it does break, it shatters into tiny cubes rather than large razor-sharp shards. Architects love it because large panels can be bolted together to make transparent walls, and turning into ceilings and floors is almost as easy. It is made by deheating a sheet of ordinary glass at about 620 Celsius to open it slightly, allowing its structure to expand and cooling it rapidly with jets of cooled air. This causes the outer layer of the paint to contract and solidify before the interior. When the interior finally solidifies and shrinks, it exerts pull on the outer layer that leaves in a permanent compression and produce a tensile force inside the glass, as cracks propagate best in materials under tension. The compressive force on the surface must be overcome before the pane will break and making it more resistant to cracking. The problem starts when glass contains nickel sulfide impurities. Trace amounts of nickel and sulfur are usually present in raw materials to make glass, and nickel can also be introduced by fragments of nickel alloys falling into molten glass. As glass as the glass is heated, these atoms react to form tiny crystals of nickel sulfide. Just a tenth of a gram nickel in a furnace can create up to 50,000 crystals. These crystals can exist in two forms: a dense form called the alpha phase, which is stable at high temperatures, and less dense form called the beta phase, which is stable at room temperatures. The high temperatures is used in the toughening process, convert all the crystals up to dense, compact alpha form, but subsequent cooling is rapid that the crystals don't have time to change back to the beta phase. This leaves unstable alpha crystals in a glass, primed like a coiled spring, ready to revert the beta test phase without warning. When this happens, the crystal expand up by to 4% if they're within the central tensile region of the pane. The stresses this unleashed can shatter the whole sheet. The time that elapses before failure occurs is unpredictable. It could just happen months after manufacture or decades later. Although, if the glass is heated by sunlight, for example, the process is speeded up. Ironically, says Graham Dodd, if consulting engineers are up in London, all this painted toughened glass is known to have failed due to nickel sulfide inclusions was in Pilkington glass research building in Lantham, Lancashire. The pane was 27 years old. Data showing the scale of the nickel sulfide problem is almost impossible to find. The picture is made more complicated by the fact these crystals occur in batches, so even if on average there is only one conclusion in 7 tones of glass. If you experience one nickel sulfide failure in your building, that probably means you got a problem in more than one pane. Josie says that in the last decade, he has worked over 15 buildings with the number of failures into double figures. One of the worst examples is the Fall waterfront pane, which was completed in 1990. Over the following decade, the 40-story Brisbane block suffered a rash of failures. 80 panes of its toughened glass had shattered due to inclusions before experts were finally called in. John Barry, an expert in nickel sulfide contamination at the University of Queensland, analyzed every glass pane in the building. Using a studio camera, a photographer went up a cradle to take photos of every pane. These are scanned under the modified microfiche reader signs of nickel sulfide crystals. We discovered at least 120 panes with potentially dangerous inclusions, which were then replaced, says Berry. It was a very expensive time and consuming process that took around 6 months to complete. throughout the project cost of 1.6 million, nearly 700,000 pounds. The alternative, recladding in the entire building, would have cost 10 times as much.